Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Bahia in Brazil. Bahia, as you can see, is along the Atlantic coast, and it gets its name from this bay right here. This is the Bay of All Saints. And along the Bay of All Saints is the capital and largest city, Salvador de Bahia. I should preface right now that my Portuguese is pretty terrible. Growing up in California, I really only hear a lot of Mexican Spanish. So whenever I see something written out that looks like Spanish, I say it that way. So my apologies if I grossly mispronounce anything. Just go ahead and correct me down in the comments. My Brazilian viewers are very sweet about that. You guys are wonderful. So go for it. But yes, the capital city, Salvador here, along the bay, and we're going to talk about this place a lot in history. But there's also so much to talk about in terms of geography. So much is happening here. Where to start? I guess we'll start over here. You can see this huge reservoir here. This is the Sobradinho Dam. You can see there's the dam right there. The Sobradinho, I think, dam. And there's the São Francisco River, which is the longest river in the state, and probably the largest by volume as well, from what I've heard about it. Dividing the state right in half, you can see right here, this is the Diamantina tableland, or as you can see here, it says Chapada Diamantina, and there's the Chapada Diamantina National Park. These are some really beautiful mountains that just literally cut the state into two different regions. So over here we have two quite distinct zones. Of course, rain comes in from the ocean, hits the tablelands here, so nothing really comes over here, so it's much, much drier. There's a region we talked about before when we talked about it. It must have been Alagoas up there. The Sertão, which I've read described as more like the outback in Australia, in that it's very dry, but really teeming with lots of interesting brush and succulent life, things like that. But there's also the Cerrado, which is most of this landscape here, which is more like a savanna landscape. A lot more trees, a lot more grass, but still very wide, dry, open spaces here. So this part of Bahia is really known for its cattle ranching. It's perfect for grazing animals out there. But on this side, it is much more lush, much more green, much more wet. There's lots of marshy areas along the coast. And in fact, the coast has some interesting names to them. Each part of the coast has a name. So starting up here in the north all the way down to Salvador, this is the Coconut Coast, which of course is known for its growing of coconuts. And I read a lot about this road that comes from Salvador and goes along here, known as the Green Line. Just, I guess, a very scenic route there. Make sure I get this right. I think it's over here. This is the Dende Coast. Dende is basically palm oil, and it's a very commonly used condiment in Brazil. It's almost like a staple condiment. Then, over here, this section here, this is the Cacao Coast, which of course is known for growing cacao, which are big old seed pods that don't look like it, but once you chop them up and dry them and do all the process to them, it turns into cocoa, which is what you make chocolate out of. And then all down here is known as the Discovery Coast. which I'm sure there's lots of industries growing along the waters here. But it's called the Discovery Coast because this is where Brazil was discovered by the Portuguese here near Porto Seguro. We'll talk about that a bit in history. But all of this lush green area along the coast is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site, as well as a part of the city of Salvador. So let me grab my tablet. I just realized I put it in a very terrible, precarious place here. Really gotta reach for it. Let's see. And let's see if I can prop this up here so you can read. There's my upstairs neighbor. Everyone say hello. Right on cue. The Discovery Coast Atlantic Forest Reserves. It says, the Discovery Coast Atlantic Forest Reserves in the states of Bahia and Espírito Santo consist of 8 separate protected areas containing 112,000 hectares of Atlantic forest and associated shrub or restigas. The rainforests of Brazil's Atlantic coast are the world's richest in terms of biodiversity. The site contains a distinct range of species with a high level of endemism and reveals a pattern of evolution that is not only of great scientific interest, but is also of importance for conservation. Being endemic means it's a species that only can be found in that area. Let's see, not a lot of pictures here, but you can get an idea of the marshy coast, and there's a pretty beach. That's nice. I was reading that this forest was once the second largest rainforest, next to, of course, the Amazon, not too far away from here. But sadly, all of the logging and deforestation has shrank it down drastically, which is quite sad. Then we have the historic center of Salvador de Bahia. Spoilers here for history. As the first capital of Brazil from 1549 to 1763, Salvador de Bahia witnessed the blending of European, African, and Amerindian cultures. It was also from 1558 the first slave market in the New World, with slaves arriving to work on the sugar plantations. The city has managed to preserve many outstanding Renaissance buildings. A special feature of the old town are the brightly colored houses, often decorated with fine stucco work. Let's see some of this beautiful architecture here. Quite European, of course. There's some Portuguese flair, as you can see there. But yes, this was the site of the first slave market in the Americas. You can see some pretty buildings there. Of course, beautiful churches. This is where they had, to put it as relaxing as possible, like a whipping pole for slaves was in this spot. This place, let's take a picture of it actually, like facing the church out. You can see the brightly colored buildings there. It fell into quite a bit of disrepair until about the 1990s. I guess it was part of the red light district. See some historic churches there. But thanks to UNESCO and the Brazilian government, it's all fixed up for tourists to come and learn about Brazil's history. Very, very important place in Brazil's history. So let's get into it. Put this back in its precarious place here. Okay. Make sure that's in a good frame so you can see everything. I always try to get the entire region in a shot, no matter how big it is. Sorry for my squeaky chair. Anyway, so we were talking about the discovery of Brazil, which is a very interesting story. In the year 1500, Pedro Alvarez Cabral accidentally landed here, or so the story goes. There's kind of a conspiracy theory that because Cabral was supposed to be sailing to the West Indies around the tip of Africa. But there's a conspiracy theory that the Portuguese government told him to say he was going that way, but to actually sail in this direction and find new land. So the story is that a storm blew him off course, and he wound up here. But the question is like, how big is that storm that it gets you across the entire Atlantic? So theory goes that he was just paid by the government to say he was heading in one direction, but actually go in another. But we'll probably never know, to be honest. Nevertheless, he landed near Porto Seguro in the year 1500. And of course, there were many, many, many indigenous tribes living here. I tried to look up as many as I could and realized I had no idea how to pronounce any of them. So just take my word for it. There were many, many different tribes, especially in the coastal areas here. In 1501, fleet sailed pier on All Saints' Day, which is November 1st. Hence the name, the Bay of All Saints. And then, of course, they established their own city, Salvador, which was established by 1549. Of course, there were already people living there, having their own bustling community. The Portuguese just built right on top of it. And as you can imagine, the Portuguese went right to work in establishing plantations all along the coast, and the main cash crop of the day was sugarcane, which is, of course, how you make sugar. All kinds of plantations springing up here in this area, mainly sugarcane, and of course, they needed someone to operate those plantations, so they began to import kidnapped Africans in droves. Brazil had the largest slave population, I was about to say in the Americas, but like in the world, to be honest. And they would come here and be bought and sold here in Salvador, in those pictures that we saw in that ferry square. This was the capital of Brazil, like it said, until 1763, because it was where all of the industry was happening. But by 1763, gold had been discovered down in Minas Gerais. So they moved the capital to Rio, which is a lot closer to the gold mining industry. So it was just an economic move. Sorry, Salvador. I just lost my place in my notes. Let's see. Oh, I guess I'll skip ahead a little bit in history since we're talking about the history of slavery here. In 1835, there was an absolutely massive slave revolt here with people who were Hausa, which is from northern Nigeria, who are a Muslim peoples, who started to fight back against their captors, inspired by events that had happened up in Haiti, not long, like a couple decades after Haiti had their slave revolt, which was wildly successful, managing to establish their own country. But sadly, the slave revolt was put down rather violently. I guess we talk about, the general history of Brazil here. You can see, make sure I get it right here. Right here. This is Cachoeira. Cachoeira. I mean, I spent 10 minutes practicing how to say this, and of course I messed it up when I'm filming. Cachoeira, which was one of the main bases for independence rebels fighting for the independence of Brazil from the Portuguese. The region, however, was very, very pro-Portugal and was the last area of Brazil to join what was becoming the Empire of Brazil at the time. And once the empire collapsed, it very much resisted that as well, trying to hold on to the empire and having Pedro II be the ruler of Brazil before he was kicked out. But nevertheless, here we are. It's part of Brazil today. It was made a state in 1889. In 1884, there was a big diamond rush in the interior. Gold and later amethysts were found in the region, bringing in people who were mining the minerals there. But by then, the agricultural economy was really diversifying, branching out into cotton and later in the 19th century rubber. Since cars started to become a thing, you need rubber for those tires, along with many other things, of course. Brazil had the majority of the world's rubber trees at this time. Not all the rubber trees, to be honest. And that's also when people started to settle out here in the more inland areas and begin ranching. Now, just a couple of interesting little cultural facts about this area, because a lot of things that are very stereotypically Brazilian began here in Salvador. One of the most notable being samba music. So samba, which you perform mainly during carnival, but you can really just perform it any time, but mostly carnival, is a blending of various African beats. So since most of Brazil's Africans lived here after they were freed from slavery, and even before them playing music during Holy Week, right before Lent, is where samba got its start. Some other traditions that came from this slavery background is capoeira. Capoeira is a very famous form of, technically it's martial arts, but it's choreographed, so it's also a kind of dance. And that's because the slaves were practicing fighting in their free time. Just, have that in their back pocket in case you need it. And of course, their captors were like, well, what are you all doing? And they're like, we are dancing. It's a dance. Look, this is from where we come. It's a dance. So it became a dance in that way, I suppose. Very generalized. Technically, it's a dance, but also technically, it's a martial art. Lots of kicking and jumping. What also began here in Salvador is candomblé. Candomblé is a blend of Catholicism and lots of African traditions, particularly Yoruban traditions from southern Nigeria, to create its very own style of what's technically Catholicism, but there's a lot of spirituality in it as well. It's really quite interesting. Salvador is actually the city with the largest black population outside of Africa. Just to give you an idea of how many people were forcefully taken over here. It was in the millions upon millions. So lots of Brazilian culture owes itself to Bahia, which is pretty neat. So why don't we go poke around this really fascinating state and see what we can find on Google Earth. I'm always nervous doing Google Earth in large places like this because I feel like I'm going to forget something so important. Fingers crossed. Let's go. Here is Bahia State. Let's zoom out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. Here is South America, with big old Brazil dominating most of it. As you can see, Bahia is this large area here. Along the coast, you can see the Amazon rainforest up here. You can even see some of that dry Sertão landscape from up high. Can you see the difference between all of this green? There's the mountains, and then all of this land here. The Sertão's mostly up there. But let's start down in Salvador. I feel like we have to, right? Such a big, beautiful city. I was looking at it from above, like, it looks pretty big. But then I zoomed in and went like this. Holy moly, it is big and bustling, isn't it? Look at all of this. This is absolutely huge city. Brazil never disappoints in its vastness. It's one of those countries, kind of like Australia or the United States. You don't realize how big it really is until you really get in there and just look at a tiny bit and realize how big it is. Like many Brazilian cities, you have your more wealthier areas, but then you can see the more poor favelas. There's a big one over here, which is the poor, almost like slum areas. You can see this is definitely a favela here. Kind of just thrown together buildings. we're going to talk about the more historical sites here. Let's head over. I was looking at all these museums over here. And look at this big old cliff there. My goodness, it's absolutely massive. But we're going to talk about, oh, then there's the big port, and where is it? Look at, there's a huge cruise ship here when Google Earth was taking pictures. But let's head over to, not the football stadium, sorry, Brazil. I think this is it. Yes. So this is the historical center known as the Pelourinho, which is from the word for pillory, which, if you know, like in medieval times when people were put in like the stocks with their hands out, like just their heads and hands through it, that's a pillory. So there's some of those beautiful buildings. Someone put Michael Jackson up here. Sure, why not? Maybe Michael stayed there at one point, I don't know. But this is the beautiful historic center here, all decorated, all lovely. This is the tourist hotspot. And look at this absolutely gorgeous church here. The interior is absolutely nuts, but that comes from all of the wealth generated. It's really pretty. Look at that big old tower there. All the beautiful Portuguese style artwork there. It's many old churches. Pose over the pictures there. So yeah, you can see from up here just how big this square is. Looks like there is some kind of maybe like a market or festival happening when this photo was taken from above. But I really want to show you this building right here. This is their Carnival Museum. Because Salvador Carnival is apparently like on a grander scale than Rio's. Rio's, of course, is flamboyant and loud and exciting, and this is more cultural. But apparently larger than Rio's, which I'm not sure I can believe that. But we have lots of artifacts from carnivals of the past, lots of costumes, and they're so gorgeous. All of the drums here, beautiful dancing costumes, and all of the wonderful colors of Carnival. I love these. So it looks like maybe fans there. And of course the very wild costumes that we have. Oh, must be a treat to be here during Carnival times. Oh, I love these. I love both these. Those are beautiful. And the big hats. Fantastic. Here's where we're now forgetting something. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to show you in Salvador, but I can't remember what it was. So I don't think it was anything. We can look at the beach. I mean, how can you not check out the beach when you're in Brazil? Gorgeous. I bet that water's fantastic. But we have lots of other beaches to look at. Let's head here along the coast. Oh, I remembered what it was I was going to show you. But we'll head back there in a minute. Here's a beautiful beach. Hello. Can we please look at beach? There we go. The Praia, right? Amaralina. Gorgeous. This is definitely, it's not an if, it's a when I go to Brazil, because I have to go to Brazil. I feel so compelled by this country. I'm going to have a hard time getting away from the beach. I'm going to visit a beach and not want to leave. I'm going to want to stay there forever. Then we move out of the city. You can see some of this marshy green coast here. See the green line there? Marked by the everything disappears when I take it off. But here you can see quite marshy and wet, perfect for growing various crops here. It's like this is the coconut coast, right? So good for growing coconuts mainly, but they also grow lots of other things around here. So I wanted to just show you some of the islands here in the Bay of All Saints. I guess we'll just poke over here and find some sights. A beautiful park. There's no pictures there. I was setting up to record this and I was like, oh, I forgot to check out the islands and see if there's any slideshows. And I'm like, oh, they'll all have pictures. There's nothing to worry about. Whoops. Eating my words here. What's happening here? Ooh. Can we go scuba diving here? I hope so. She's in the water. We're under the water. Fantastic. I'm gonna have to get scuba licensed before I go to Brazil. Sort of like I feel like you're only enjoying half the fun if you stay above the surface here. There must be so much to see. I think there was when I was playing around over here. I think I saw a slideshow that was under the water, but I'm probably not gonna find it. It wasn't a lot of pictures, but it was cool. The Nautical Museum. Oh, that's cool. But we've got other things to look at. You can always check out Salvador in your own time. Highly recommended. I want to show you these beautiful, beautiful mountains. I think I had to put it on everything to make the national park pop up. Let's see. Let's see. As you can see the mountains there, can't you? But the park is only in one specific place, which is the most beautiful place. Of course, now I'm not going to find it, huh? Here you can see some of the Sertão. There's another park up here. Hat Hill. Oh, this one was a pretty neat slideshow. Mostly wind turbines, but you can see some of the cool, like, vegetation here. Like, what a difference from the beautiful coasts, right? Like I said, kind of like the outback, but also kind of like the African savanna, where it's very shrubby and grassy, but still very dry. I have to show you the national park. I thought it was down here. It's gonna pop up eventually. Look at all this Portuguese. It's throwing me off. I'm sure all of these are great little slideshows, to be honest, here in the mountains. Some mountain peaks there. I want to show you. Maybe it was this one. Yes, this was it. Perfect. How gorgeous is this? So I was trying to say in the beginning how it like slices through, but then I would almost stop myself and be like, ASMR Geographica mountains don't slice, they go up. But these mountains slice. Look at this huge canyon in between. It's like someone just took a knife and just cut the mountains and just spread them out. Absolutely stunning. Stunning, stunning. And these rock formations, beautiful waterfalls. It's all so beautiful. Look at these sights. Imagine hiking up here. Oh, really cool monument for something. Oh, that's beautiful. Little church. I'm sure there's lots of little chapels and things up in random parts of the mountains. Oh wow, that's incredible. Little cave there. Oh yeah, see all the little churches and chapels. Go inside one of the scary caves. Anyway, they're enjoying their time. Isn't that spectacular? Let's find another slideshow. Why not? Let's look at this one. Toco do Gaucho. Gaucho. Beautiful. Oh, scary caves, but that's okay. I can enjoy them from afar. I don't need to go into the scary caves, but like how lush it is here. It's tropical. It's almost like you're in Guatemala and Costa Rica up here. He's got a cow. The cow is secured. He's got the cow. If you know, you know. Yeah, there's just something kind of unsettling about caves and being underneath the earth. I don't know. I don't like it. Let me turn the everything off. I'm glad I found the slideshow to show you guys. I wonder if we can check out the reservoir here. See the Sao Francisco River. I'm from San Francisco, California, so that's how I'm inclined to pronounce it. But that's not correct. Make sure I'm not turned around. There we go. Yeah, let's see if we can look at least the dam. Surely that has a slideshow. Surely. Yeah. Let's take a look at it. Oh, they've got their selfies in front of it. Wow. It's one of the, I think it's like top 20 largest man-made lakes in the world. Like dammed reservoir lakes, you know. I don't know why else you'd make a man-made lake unless it's by an accident. He's very victoriously biked all the way up there, and she's loving the view. Very, very nice. Okay. Gosh, I still just have that nagging feeling that I'm forgetting to show you something. But why don't we... Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put the state lines back up to make sure I'm not clicking out of it, because I almost did, right? I want to show you more of the kind of rugged landscape here. Let's maybe find a little town to check out. See if it has any good... Oh, look at this. Oh my, look how dry it is. I mean, like for Brazil. Gosh. It's very like backwoods America there. It's not, you know, you think Brazil, you think Amazon, or you think the beach. You don't really ever think of little ranchy towns like this, right? Oh, beautiful church. Oh, not the right one, but it looks awfully close, doesn't it? Wow, that's a neat picture, actually. I really like the little cow down there. Of course, cattle is big, big business in Brazil, one of the largest meat-eating countries per volume in the world. They love their barbecue here. Let's head over here real quick and find one last slideshow to end it out. We looked at that, the Hats Hills, right? See, look at this landscape. I was worried when I first saw that this was all deforestation, but no, it's all just very dry, barren land, which probably was from deforestation, to be honest, at one point. But here's a little Recife, not the Recife. Let's find one more little slideshow. Let me put on the everything. All the roads popped up. Let's see. What's this? It's a scenic thing. Nope, nothing there. Wow, look at that. Not a long enough slideshow. I guess we'll just end the video so we're not wandering forever. But look at this landscape. Not what you think of when you think Brazil, but it is indeed very Brazilian. What's that? What's this? Oh, a little sport area. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. Next, we're going to be heading to one of my trivia audience's favorite countries, Chad, over the ocean in Africa. And it's going to be a tablet-only video as well. So it's just going to be this. So if you enjoyed this segment, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. Let's just grab a random about this coastal city here. Wow, gorgeous. I hope that you have